once again, welcome back to Digging into the Bible. This week, we're taking a look at Genesis chapter 11. Last week, we skipped a bunch of things we didn't read in detail. This time, we're hitting the Tower of Babel. So we've transitioned from Noah and his family coming through the flood. We've seen the descendants of Noah become nations. And now, well, how do they behave? What do they do? Well, let's begin. Chapter 11, verse 1. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. Well, that's natural. They came from Noah. They had Noah's language. They spoke the same way Noah would have. Makes sense. They're all unified in that. Okay. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves." Okay, let's pause right here. So the first part of this, let's build a city with a tower. So far, so good. Great. Be creative. God has created you to be creative, not a problem. Oh, let's make a name for ourselves. So we're not being creative as a reflection of who God is. They're starting to forget, let's create so that everyone knows how great we are, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do." See, God is starting to see out ahead, or at least he's noting it. It's not as if this is a surprise to him, right? He's communicating in this moment and telling the story back to Moses as he relates this, that this is what he's observing. They're one people, they're united. They're starting to do things out of ego rather than worship. And God wants to pause, or he's concerned over this. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down, and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there, the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. So they're unified, which in a big picture sense sounds good. We hope for unity. But what type of unity? It was not a unity that worshiped God, but it began to be a unity that worshiped man, man worshiping man, trying to make a name for himself, to say, "We are the greatest, and everyone should know that." And God at this point is concerned not just for what they're doing in that time, but he's concerned for what else, what other trouble they might get into. And so he disperses them. Easy way to do it. Instead of telling them to go, he just confuses their language. Can you imagine waking up one morning and suddenly your friends no longer speak the language you do and you can't communicate with them? It had to be incredibly frustrating. And that drives the people into separate groups. And they go and they start living in different parts of the world. And that reshapes the way in which the history of humanity took shape, because God moves them from a unified group into a dispersed groups. Now, what continues here is a mention of Shem's descendants. And like we did last time, we're not going to dig through and read all of the begattings and who did what and who they all were and how long they lived. And you can look at that in detail and figure out that, in fact, actually what you might notice is if you looked at prior to Noah, lifespans were a lot longer. And you look through this, and as you read it, I mean, I'll just give you a sample. One guy, lives 403 years, then 430, then 209, 207, 200, 119. You notice what's happening? Lifespans are declining. Post flood and post Tower of Babel, God is starting to rein in the life expectancy of the people of the earth. We get ourselves into trouble if we're given too much time, leaving us in our sinful condition too long to experiment with, well, honestly, just getting a little too good at sinning. So God is pulling that back in. But what gets interesting is what happens here at the end of chapter 11. And we're looking at verse, was it 31? Terah took Abram his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his grandson, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. The days of Terah were 205, and Terah died in Haran. This starts to set up the next story, introducing a new character, if you will, of Abram. And we'll discover we know him better as Abraham, and Sarai, his wife, as Sarah. But he and Sarah and nephew Lot become important figures in the coming chapters. So we're going to pause here, come back to chapter 12 next week. God bless.